Welcome to the Idaho Business Podcast, the only Idaho podcast focused on providing profits for Idaho people. If you love our state and love small business, you are in the right place. We interview local legends, learn business, and have way too much fun doing it. You're listening to the Idaho Business Podcast with your friend, host, and all-around great guy and owner of New Clean Commercial Cleaning, Spencer Ward.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Idaho Business Podcast, where the focus is always the same: profits for Idaho people. So obviously, I'm the host, Spencer Ward, and today I'm going to give you a front row seat in what it's like to pitch your business in front of serious investors. We'll talk about the tough questions I got asked, what I learned, and how you can be more prepared to either scale your business or raise capital for your business. So let's dive into it. So the reason I was going up there is we're rolling up other janitorial companies. No surprise, you know I'm in the janitorial industry. That's what I do. So we're rolling up other companies in the Intermountain West, pretty much from Montana all the way down to Arizona. And I'm part of a group. Carl Allen, fantastic guy. And they've been teaching us how to buy businesses. So they created a competition to pitch. And there's a group we're part of is called the 9FB. So there's a 9FB capital fund you're pitching to, and the winner of that of the pitch competition got term sheets. So we all were divided into different teams. We had an advisor on each one of our teams, and we worked hard for about 90 days just straight on just this pitch. First time I've ever done something like this. It was super interesting, painstaking. Learned a lot about myself. Learned a lot about more about the industry, because you got to be dialed in. You do not want to BS your way through a pitch. I can tell you that right now, because you will get torn apart, even if you think you're prepared. Even if you know your stuff forward and backwards, you're still going to get asked a question that you're like, oh boy. And before I get too far into it, I will tell you right now, it's better to say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll get back to you on it. It's better to say that than to give a BS answer and to try to slide your way through it, because you just make yourself look dumb. All right. So that's what was going on. You get one shot to make a first impression. It's not all about what's on your slides. It's how well you understand the business and what's behind the business. And let's start off on what this pitch was about. Okay. This pitch had to be 15 minutes, nothing more. It could be less, but you had 15 minutes to get your whole point across of what you're trying to do, how are you going to do it, what team you've combined to accomplish it, and how are you going to make the investors feel confident to give you the capital that you're requesting. That's a lofty goal to accomplish in 15 minutes. The first thing you don't want to do is fill your slides full of just tons and tons of words, because they can't read and listen to you at the same time. So have good bullet points, have some good visual slides, and tell a story. And I've read a few books. There are Get Backed is a good book that you want to read if you're going to be doing a pitch. Talk Like Ted, a very enlightening book, talking about all the people who presented in the TED Talks and which ones were the most viewed and the most successful, because they were telling stories throughout. If you just get up there and tell facts and figures, it gets really boring and mundane. But if you can hold their attention and help them understand, why you're doing it, what's your vision behind it, what's your why behind it, what's going to motivate you through this whole thing, so you're not going to get tired and just kind of sit upon the investor's money. So that's kind of the intro of this experience. So we went through it. We pitched a couple times. We didn't make it to the second round, and because our roll up isn't as big compared to the other roll-ups. These other roll-ups were, these guys were talking about anywhere from 300 million to $500 million exits. Uh, so that's remarkable, and that's what the capital uh, funds were looking for, those bigger exits. So phenomenal pitches. I was able to hear phenomenal pitches from some super smart people, and to be in a room with these serious investors. Let's talk about some of the hard questions that these guys were asked on the final day to decide who the winner was. But after their pitch, they would get these questions from the investors. So let's talk through a few of them that really, like, I wrote down, like, whoa, okay, how do I got to put this into my own routine and my own study and make sure I have the answers to this. One question was, what KPI in your business, if it declined by 20%, would destroy your business? And how would you combat that? So that was interesting, and off the bat, off the top of your head, with no stress on you, you might be able to think of one or two. But when you have 9 or 10 investors sitting around a table with you standing up, the stress, it gets to you, and you're put right there, So that one hit hard. So each business has a different one for sure. Employee turnover, employee retention would be a big one for me. If I couldn't, retain employees, because we're so heavy with labor, with our costs. But every business has their own KPI that would be, and that I don't even know if that's the one that would really do it for me. So I'm really still thinking of, like, okay, I need to, that's my homework really for this week, is what would be that KPI that if it declined by 20% would destroy it. So think about that as you're going throughout your business. Even if you're not, guys, even if you're not looking to raise capital, I know you're all trying to look to grow your businesses. So these are the questions that you should be thinking as I'm growing my business, how it's going to better your business by knowing these questions and coming up with the answers to these questions. So the next question was another good one. And there was many, many questions. I'm not going to read all of them to you, but there's a couple that just stood out to me. So many of these people they had multiple companies already underneath their belt. So one of the questions was, who's reading the action and acting on the data from each company you own? That's interesting, because I think many of us, we receive data from our employees. We receive data from the different measurement devices we have in our companies. But who is the one acting on it and actually putting actions to those data points? Because when your employees talk to you and they have good ideas and they know your culture, they want to see some type of change when things are happening. And if you don't ever make action on these things that are data points that are being brought up, they're going to think, okay, well, they say they believe in this X, Y, and Z, but they really don't. Okay, so think of that one. That's a really good one, because many of us are good about collecting information, but who is actually collecting it and acting upon it? A lot of us have the information, but we're not the best at acting upon it and actually putting stuff into the game and playing with it. Okay. Third question was a little pre-framing to this question. A lot of questions were answered by, you know what, it's the culture that we're building that's going to help drive that KPI or this segment of our business. This is, they use the culture button to answer a lot of questions, and that's great. Culture is fantastic. One of the questions was, how are you going to measure culture? And that stunned a lot of people, because they're like, holy smokes, what are we doing? How are we measuring this? We've talked on this podcast quite a bit about, we do 90-day reviews. with our employees. You can do monthly internal surveys that are anonymous. You can tracking key behaviors. We even have an app that's, after they clock out of each shift, it says, "Hey, how are you feeling? What's your mood like?" And they can have these little emoticons that they can pick, like frustrated, happy, sad, just minor things that measure, in the moment, culture. So how are you going to measure culture within your business? Because we're all trying to build some kind of culture, correct? How are you going to measure it? All right. So these are the big questions that I've been thinking about. Um, and I want to continue to dive in more to learn more about this kind of stuff. You can't BS your way through the pitch. Investors will feel it. Know your numbers, but know your risks even better. Be honest about what's still being built and clear about what you'll build it and excuse me and how you'll build it. Um, it forced me to go from operator to visionary. Not just how are we doing, but what will break first and how do we protect it? That's a big one. You will get torn apart by investors. There were some that I'm like, they gonna cry? Because I probably there's times I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm glad it's not me up there. And I felt bad for these people, but these guys were studs up there. They stood up and they handled it like true professionals. So in conclusion, with all this stuff, I hope walking through my investor pitch gave you some insight or maybe a few things to think about in your own business, whether you're running a service business in Rigby or raising capital for a software startup in Boise. It all comes back to building smart, scalable businesses that serve our communities. And like always, guys, go out there, be happy, be grateful, and find opportunities to serve others. And just go out there and better yourself, better your businesses, and accomplish that culture. Adios.
Congratulations on spending a couple of minutes getting a little bit smarter, having some fun, and supporting the Idaho business community. If you're feeling the love, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you are.